OMG guys, there is actually a revolution going on in shoes in terms of running performance right underneath our feet. I mean literally under our feet, and it's led primarily by Nike. Okay, I'm going to say Nike, you might say Nike, who cares? The point is, the technology that is advancing apace is just incredible. You guys will already know that Nike introduced a lot of innovations into their Vaporfly series. In 2017, they helped Kipchoge nearly get the 2-hour marathon in the Breaking 2 attempt, didn't they? Now that shoe was already pretty amazing, but 2019 they've updated it with the next percent. It was, by the way, going to be called the 5%, but they thought that just calling it 5% wasn't quite right because, to be fair, the gain does depend on the runner. And by the way, the gain in speed is not the one that's advertised in the headline percent. That's the increase in metabolic efficiency, or let's say oxygenation cost. So using these shoes, the next percent, Kipchoge won the 2019 London Marathon, actually did that in 2:02, but he also broke the world record in the 2018 Berlin Marathon, 2:01:39. And who's to say he's not going to get the sub 2 anyway in these shoes? Okay, before we get too carried away, let's have a look at the technology that's hiding behind the scenes in this really cool design, because what's hiding under the surface is what's really giving an advantage here. So the little things are the shoe redesign. For example, the heel to toe drop has come down from around 11mm to 8mm in this design. The laces are somewhat offset, which makes it more comfortable. Together with the tongue, it was taken out, is being introduced a better Achilles and ankle box and shoe box area. They've both been improved, but they've stuffed more of this like aerospace Zoom X foam into the sole. Now this is the foam that they said previous shoes, even decent shoes give 60 to 75% energy return. But the Zoom X foam gives a seemingly impossible 85% energy return. Combine that with a carbon fiber plate, which was initially said to boost that return, boost the percentage by another 1%, like up from 4 to 5. And you get a super energy efficient shoe. A bit like for cyclists thinking about your tire, there's got to be compression, but you want rebound, hysteresis without energy loss, without heating, right? But wait guys, I haven't finished because it's got two other tricks up its sleeve. One is weight. Of course, weight has such a big deal in running, doesn't it? And the weight is down from around about 217 to 220 grams in the Flyknit version down to about 200 grams in the next percent, or 7.1 ounces. And that's in a 10, size 10. So it's potentially lighter, definitely lighter in a smaller shoe. And that difference is even more exacerbated when it's raining, because some pros who running with this shoe, like the predecessor or with the Flyknit, and the Flyknit has been super popular because everyone loves that fabric in terms of its look, but it's pretty bad when it gets wet. In other words, it takes on water really poorly. And these guys here have done a test, and what happened, they got both shoes wet, and the Flyknit took on weight like a barge and went up from around 220 grams to 270 grams, or 9.45 ounces, whereas the next percent stayed sleek and light. It only went up from 200 grams to 233, or from 7 to 8 ounces, because that fabric resists the water sitting there and it doesn't soak it up. It basically lets the water move off in a slippery fashion, which is awesome if you're running in bad conditions. By the way, they've also redesigned the sole tread, again taking the feedback of the pros such as Kipchoge and Mo Farah, who said that they wanted a specific redesign, so they've made the sole more grippy so you can run in a variety of conditions. Okay, not trail running, not off-road, not grass, but on decent amount of slippery tarmac, let's say. Now they've got one last little trick up their sleeve, and this one's going to seem almost unbelievable. In fact, it kind of is unbelievable because, we're talking about running at modest speeds. I'm talking here about aerodynamics. Yes, the shoe itself is actually aerodynamic, and it's not just this version. They've done it in the previous version. They've done it with other shoes like the Pegasus Turbo 2, the Zoom Fly 3. Basically, their mid-range shoes are all going in this direction, and that is to build in an aerodynamic advantage into the shoe, which means an aerodynamic toe box, an aerodynamic shape at the rear, which improves airflow. I know it sounds crazy at this speed. It's the ultimate in marginal gain, but results count. And that's what we're going to look at next. How do we know these changes actually are having any effect? How do we know this shoe is actually working? Let's have a look at that, guys. Okay, well, the first way we could have a look if a shoe was any good, I guess, would be to look at regular runners' reviews. And I hate to do this because they're kind of all over the place on the internet. But there is one site I'll recommend which does a pretty good job of bringing all those reviews together, and that is runrepeat.com. So if you go onto Run Repeat, you can build in a few filters like choose your brand, choose your terrain, choose your color, choose your size, obviously, choose your shoe weight, which is important. If we haven't established that, we'll look at that again. Choose your price range, etc., etc. And it will give you reviews that people have written. Hopefully these are not shill reviews, these are real. And they give you an overall score. Look, it's a heads up. It's not the best thing in the world. It's a starting place. And sometimes it's good to get people's real feedback, even if you want to look at a more authoritative source later, right? But what if we go to the other end of the market and look at results from actual marathons, half marathons of, let's say, elite runners? What do we find then? Well, we find that Nike has actually dominated the results market for a pretty long time. Check out these results. 2018 London Marathon major wins. Nike, 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 Nike. Asics, Nike, 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 Nike. Adidas, Nike, Nike, Nike. You see the pattern emerging. Also in women's, pretty much the same. And now in 2019, it's even more dominant than that. However, don't write home about that slide too much because this could be influenced by sponsorship, habits, other things that are not purely related to performance. You don't know that these elite runners have tested out, various shoes. But we can look at a site that has looked at that, i.e. what happens when you change shoe. Why can't we get that data off Strava for major races and say, if you change shoe, how does your running time change? Does it improve or does it deteriorate? And that's exactly what the New York Times has done. Now, okay, I'm going to concede this is self-report data, but their sample size is pretty impressive. What they've actually got here is a list of 500,000 runners who've reported their shoes in Strava and then done a marathon, Berlin, Chicago, New York, Tokyo, etc. And then they've looked at their times relative to themselves or relative to others. And actually, it's pretty convincing. If you look here, this is the estimate in mean change in race times that you get when switching shoes. Now, this is not totally up to date because this story was published in July 2018 when the Vaporfly 4% was kind of dominant. But you get the picture here. Vaporfly 4% actually got the runners running about 4% faster. Other good shoes, Nike Streak, Newton Distance, Asics DC Runner, Adidas Adizero Boston, On Cloud Flow, Nike Fly Zoom, Hoka One One Clayton. You know, there are other good choices you can make, but you can also make bad choices down here. Presumably these ones deteriorate your running. New Balance 1080, New Balance 880, Saucony Ride, Brooks Glycerin, Hoka One One Bondi. You know, these were not good choices. They tried to look at the statistics in various other ways as well. For example, when an individual made a change in their shoes from the previous shoe to their current shoe, what happened? They also looked at the likelihood of getting a PR when changing shoe. And the results all went in the same direction and were pretty much internally consistent, which is reassuring. But there is one massive confound in this, which is that there's a big psychological boost of buying a new pair of $200, $250 shoes and then trying to run your best time. By the way, it's never recommended to change your shoes and immediately run a really long race. But you know what I mean. When you get that new pair of shoes, you get that new shoe effect, just like you get the new bike effect or new wheel effect. There's a feel-good effect. There's a psychological effect. So this might not be all due to shoe science. Okay, the next thing we could do in the name of science is we could actually test these shoes, and I'm really relieved I don't have to. I don't have to spend that $250 and then go out and do 10 time trials outside, 5K or 10K. In any case, it wouldn't be particularly valid because of the variability in outdoor weather conditions, meaning it would swamp that relatively small difference between shoes. So we can therefore do it indoors on a treadmill. And one nice way to do that would be with a running power meter. Yeah, remember they exist like the Stride. So this guy on YouTube, Captain 3D, check out his video, actually tested several shoes using the Stride power meter and the treadmill. He did quite a few trials of different shoes. I'll save you the pain of going through this table in a great deal of detail. But basically there was greater energy return for the amount of effort he was putting in, i.e. more power compared to heart rate for the Vaporfly and actually Zoom Fly as well. So those shoes came out pretty well. Now if you want to go to a whole new level of sophistication, then you're going to have to do some kind of oxygenation running metabolic efficiency tests. And yeah, someone's done that as well. These guys, Triathlon Crew Cologne, have actually done it in the lab in a pretty sophisticated way. I'm very impressed with their video. Check it out here. So basically what they did is they measured VO2, oxygen consumption, heart rate, running efficiency, running economy with three shoes, the mid-range Nike Air Zoom Pegasus 36, which is not a bad shoe, by the way, the 2017 Vaporfly 4%, and the very latest 2019-2020 Vaporfly Next Percent. They got the same runner to run multiple trials on the treadmill using each shoe, and then varied the treadmill in speed from, let's say, modestly fast to pretty fast in kilometers an hour, 12, 14, and 16, and compared the metabolic cost across each shoe. And the results? Well, the results are pretty fascinating, guys. Let's do the 4% versus the Pegasus. At 12 kph, it was about 4% more efficient. At 14, around 2%. At 16, only 0.36% more efficient. Let's do the next percent versus the Pegasus. Let's do the next percent versus the 4%. It was 1.5% more efficient at 12, at 14 around 4%, and at 16 around 2.67. So averaging around about 3% more efficient for the next percent over the 4%, which is a very creditable result. So what if you take the next percent, the top of the range, and compare it to the relatively mid-range Pegasus? Well, it was 5% more efficient at 12, 6.5 at 14, and 3% at 16. So let's say an average of around 5% actually. And I believe these results were real. I don't believe they concocted them. It's pretty much here on YouTube for everyone to see. Now, let's be fair. They didn't have enough trials. They had one runner, 80 kilogram. They had, set points on the treadmill. So to get really sophisticated, you'd want to do a lab study. Aha, you can't fool me, guys, because a lab study is exactly what's been done by Hukamer and Roger Cram in this 2018 edition in Sports Medicine, where they looked at a comparison of energetic costs of running in marathon shoes. I'll put a link to this study in the link below. But essentially, they looked at 18 high-caliber athletes who ran 6 5-minute trials in 3 shoes, replicated twice. And the shoes were the Nike Zoom Streak, the Adidas Adizero Adios, and the Nike prototype of the Zoom Fly 4%. And the results showed that once they went to the trouble of matching the shoe weight, i.e. the mass of the shoe was equalized, then the 4% was actually 4% more efficient in terms of energetic costs of running in that shoe compared to the others. And if you want the details, then very briefly, the VO2 of 14 kilometers an hour were 42 with the Nike Streak. With the Adidas, they were also 42, but with the 4%, they were down to 40. And at the other end of the scale, it's 18 kilometers an hour. They were 60 with the Nike Zoom and the Adidas, but down to 57 with the 4%, which is pretty impressive, you have to admit. However, I will say that you have to take any study which may be sponsored by a certain manufacturer with a pinch of salt, as always. Okay, we're getting pretty deep into the science, guys, and I might be going off the deep end. If some of you like or share this video now and let me know in the comments below, I might be tempted to make a calculator of exactly how much these shoes are going to save you compared to one competitor, or let's say the average shoe. And I'm not saying you've got to go out and buy the highest end shoe possible and you're going to have a massive gain, like 5% increase in your running time. That's not always going to happen. It doesn't quite work like that, despite me putting a good case of advancement. Also, if you're doing regular training and regular running, then you might want to have like a more regular shoe that you don't mind wearing out, because probably a fact of life is these shoes are going to wear out pretty quick. They're made to be ultra light. The weight is a big factor. Like as a rule of thumb, 100 grams off your shoes might save you 1% in energetics and just less than 1% in terms of running time. But I don't subscribe to the theory that only fast runners benefit from expensive shoes. Just like for cycling, it's a myth that aerodynamics only work for faster riders. And that's because the time on the course is disproportionately large for slower riders, and aerodynamics works for any speed. So in terms of time, you get significant gains even if you're slow as a proportion of your time. All that said, you guys know I love a bargain, and I'm probably going to be the last person that's going to buy the 250 next percent shoe if you can get that for less. So can you get that next percent for less? Well, yes, you can. You can go for something like the Pegasus Turbo 2, which has a lot of the features. It has the Zoom X foam. It has a semi-aerodynamic shape. It has a lightweight fundamental carcass, and it also has a carbon plate. You'll be getting around 80% of the benefit by going for that cheaper shoe than you would with the next percent. True, if you drop down 1 or 2 levels further to the Pegasus 36, which is still a decent shoe, you are losing out on some of those features. But there is a shoe that's almost as good as the Next Percent series, and it pretty much has every feature, but it's not that well discussed or talked about, and you can get some tremendous bargains with it, and that is the Nike Zoom Fly 3. Personally, I think that one hits the sweet spot if you want to go for the best price, but the best performing shoe, and that's this one here, the Nike Zoom Fly 3. Okay guys, so what I'm saying today finally is that there's a tremendous innovation going on in running shoes, and at the end of the day there's not much technology that improves running, unlike cycling where we can fiddle around with a lot of parts. So if you can do something with your shoes, it can make a big difference. And yeah, I'm not advocating these for everyone or for routine training, but for race day, going against the clock, trying to get your PR against some of your competitors who you want to beat, maybe this is the way to go. So guys, this is Coach Alex signing out for Fast Fitness Tips. I hope you enjoyed this. Give me a like or a share because it will encourage me to make new videos along these lines. And if you want me to make a specific calculator on shoe energetics, yeah, I'm happy to do that in the future. Be sure to check out our social media, join us on our Strava Club. If you want to support us, kindly do so on Patreon. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care guys, have a good run or have a good ride.